How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and welcome to the Inspiral podcast. Now, perhaps you could give our audience a brief summary of the many challenging and otherwise things that we are going to be talking about in today's podcast.
I think one of the main things we're going to be talking about is grief and losing loved ones, and also about living with mental health. And I think that's a big one. And it's not just my mental health, but my wife's mental health as well. It's how do we deal with somebody else's mental health in the household?
Yeah, there's a lot to break down in there, and I'm excited for this podcast, and I'll tell you why. I'll give you insight into that. It's because you're the first man on the podcast, and
Woohoo!
we all know how difficult a lot of men find it to speak up, to talk out, to reach out. So, Barry, thank you so much for coming on today and being the first. So, what is the one thing over all of those different topics that you would like our audience, your listeners, to take away from today?
I think I've got two, if that's okay to have two. The first
It
thing
is.
is life is too short. It can be taken away at any moment, and we don't know when that time's going to be. So the second thing is life is about creating memories. We've got to create memories all the time, every single day. So when we get that opportunity, when we pass away, we leave a legacy, we leave stories that other people can tell us about or tell about us.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll hear stories of loved ones that have passed away as well, as you said. Take us back then to your younger years, up until the age where everything changed at 22.
So I was always brought up in a loving family. I had a mum, my dad, and my brother. And if it had horsepowers and it had motorbikes, it had anything to do with an engine, we was loving it. And all through my younger years, I was really into my sport. And my mum, my dad, and me, we used to travel all around Europe racing motorbikes. We used to do motocross. My brother had the opportunity, but he found ladies and cars and he went down that way. But I was just passionate about racing motorbikes. We'd race in Belgium, Holland, Germany, France, in the UK. And that was my upbringing. It was just weekends sleeping in the back of a transit van, racing all weekends, and then we'd come home and back to school for Monday. So that was my whole childhood, was just racing and doing sport.
It sounds like every young person's dream.
Oh, it was phenomenal. We had a racetrack. So we lived in a little village called West Huffam, and over the hill we heard this buzzing noise every weekend, and just get curious about what it was. So me and my mates got on a push bike. We drove over the hills on our push bikes, and there they were racing around this track. And I've got to do it. And I badgered my mum and dad for must have been about a year. And then they picked me up from school one time and they said, right, we're going to go and see a friend. Went to a friend, went in their back garden, and there was this little TY80, a little trials bike for me to have. And they brought it for me for my first bike. And then we went on and brought a motocross bike, and then we started racing, and that was it. It was in my blood.
For a happy and active childhood, and one that presumably would be very different if iPhones were invented back in those days. It's lovely to hear you're out and about. So, moving forward, you are having the time of your life as a young man growing up with hobbies and exercise. But what happened then?
So you go back to 2000, it was year 2000. I would just turned 22, and my dad, he woke up on a Saturday morning. It was Saturday, 19th of September. And he said to my mum, I don't feel very well. I don't feel right in myself. So mum said, don't go to work. Just stay at home and see how you feel. But he didn't want to let his colleagues down. He didn't want to let his workmates down. So he went off to work. I didn't know this, but I was staying at a mate's house that night because we went out on a few beers. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, I had a phone call from my mum saying, we need to get to Kent and Canterbury Hospital. Your dad's not well. So I jumped in the car. I drove off. My mum drove off. My brother drove off, all from these different directions. We met at the hospital, and we looked at each other and thought, something in the air doesn't feel right. We could sense something weren't well. So we went into the hospital, and you've probably seen it on Casualty or one of the ER programs. They escort you nicely into a family room. And I looked at my mum. She looked at me again. And it was, you knew what the doctors were going to say when they come in, and they come in, they just, they do that thing where they shake their head, and the whole world stopped. And I can physically feel it now. The world stopped on his axis. The numbness was just coming down like this curtain, and it was like slow motion. My conscious mind was understanding that my dad had passed away, and my subconscious mind was saying, this doesn't happen like this. They're meant to grow old together. My dad was 57, and they're meant to grow old together and live this retirement that they was looking forward to. But that never happened. So looking back on it now, I could see there was this confrontation with my conscious mind and my subconscious mind, and I couldn't make head nor tail of it. And that was my first experience of grief in that moment in time.
Right, first of all, thank you for sharing. And second of all, I think so many other people are going to be acknowledging what you're saying, where it just doesn't add up.
No.
You've got to be kidding. Those words aren't meant for me. They're not meant for us. It's not the right time. It's not the right anything else, of course.
Yeah.
Did you find that, like you say, you're almost playing catch up?
In that moment in time, it was like, as I said, the world stopped still, and my brain didn't work. It was just, it went numb, numb to anything, numb to pain, numb to distractions. It was just, I looked at mum, we both fell to the floor, we held each other, and it was like, there's nothing else that matters. Nothing else in this world, bills, there's nothing coming to my head. But the scary thing was they escorted us out of this family room to go and see my dad straight away. And he was laying on the table, and I can still feel now. He was white, but I expected him to sit up and go, ha
Mm,
ha, gotcha.
mm,
And my mum, I don't remember this, but my mum always said I grabbed him and I picked him up. I picked my dad off this bed, and I don't even recall that. So your brain is really, really clever how it shuts out some of these things. But yeah, that was the first time I saw a dead person, the first time I experienced grief. And it was, yeah. And as I said to you before, this is probably the first time that I can talk about it now without feeling those emotions. And it's 26 years. Normally I'd start a conversation and I could feel the emotions coming up,
mm.
but I don't know what's happened over the last year. I feel more confident in talking about my dad's passing.
This is the first time I've heard it, Buzz, from you in this detail. And it's heartbreaking for me. So isn't it interesting how time affects so much in when was the last time you saw your dad prior to that moment in the hospital?
It was just before I went out with my mates, and I said to him, I'm just going to go out with my mates for a few drinks. And he said that the last thing he said to me was, stick a bloody coat on, Baz. You're going to freeze out there. And me being like, nah, I'd rather be cold and cool than carrying a jacket around me all day. And that was the last conversation I had. The last thing he did for me was change the oil in my car. So he changed the oil and all the filters, because he was a marine engineer. So he changed all that. It was like it was a setup. He'd done all the mechanics on my car. My car was safe. And then he passed away.
You know, this is going to be a huge question, far too big to answer now. What have you taken from your dad? What if we were to look at you now and see bits of your dad in you, which bits are those?
Life's too short. Life's too short for worrying about the past, because we spend most of our time looking over our shoulder, worrying
Yeah.
about it, being anxious about what's happened. Life's too short for looking behind us. We've got to move forwards. Life is about creating memories. If somebody says, Simon, can you do this? Just say yes. Say yes to everything. And if it goes tits up and it doesn't work out, then you've got a great story to tell, because we are all going to go through really tough times in life. But those tough times create good stories, and good stories create good memories. And those memories and those stories are the things that we can help other people with. So when we go through tough times, and we can help that other person. And my dad was always about helping other people, like with my car, with my brother and me and whatever it was. He was a grumpy sod, but he would do anything for anybody else.
You started a couple of minutes ago, well, a few minutes ago, with create memories, create legacy. Um, you are now repeating your dad's words and his
Mhm.
legacy. Couldn't be more true. You've got a smile on your face from ear to ear. You
Oh,
remember fondly. Do you hear your dad at all? Do you hear him in your inner sense when you get moments that maybe challenge you?
yeah, some things like if the biggest thing he would always say to me, "You'll break that. You'll break that." I don't know whether that was my personality or my behavior. You'll break that. And if I do something and I'm like, I feel myself getting frustrated with what I'm doing, you'll break that. That's the big thing that he always said. And that comes up in my mind when things happen.
So you're clearly older, wiser now.
Yeah.
Um, as a 22-year-old impressionable man,
Mm.
stroke boy, when I was back, I was 22 thinking I was a man. But when I look back now, um, what was it like then? Were you able to speak out? Times were different, the age difference. How did you open up to this? What was the procedure?
I think it's understanding that the more you talk about grief, the more you talk about the people that you've lost, the easier it becomes. And one of the grieving processes I learned through my dad and through my mum, which we'll probably go on to in a bit,
Hmm.
is that a lot of people, when they are going through grief, they think about themselves. I've lost this person. It's worries me kind of thing. And I don't mean to belittle it, but I flipped that on the head because every time I spoke about my dad and my mum with that mentality, I've lost my mum. I'm so sad. That got me upset. And what flipped is I celebrate my dad. I celebrate my mum every time I have this conversation. And it's about embracing their lives, what they brought to my life, how they inspired me, what I've learned from them, what they've implemented into my life. If I talk about them in that way, it celebrates them, but it's so much easier for me to do than going in the dark. I've lost, they've died, they're dead. Because that's one thing. When someone dies, and this was the big eye opener, it's forever. And it's that finality of that it's forever is the hardest thing to deal with. But when you talk about these people, your parents and your loved ones, in this positive way, and you start sharing what they brought to your life, they're never dead because they are with you with your whole journey. They are inspiring you to talk to other people. They are there guiding you on your next adventure. They're there, got your back when you ask your partner to marry you and all these different things. They're there with you. So they never die. And it's just a nice way to deal with death.
Oh, that was beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. And that will help so many. And if I may imagine your dad now looking down, he would rather be seeing you talking about him with a smile on your face and celebrating rather than the thought of you being upset because of him. So
100%.
it's just that mindset flip, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. And it's the same with everything. We can flip everything. Doesn't matter how thinly you slice that piece of bread, there's two sides. And we can see it from a negative side or a positive side. And for me, I want my life to be filled with positivity because it makes me feel better. And when I'm feeling better, I make better decisions.
Because at 22, we didn't have this wisdom. And
We just had mobile
I,
phones back then. They just
we
come
did,
out.
you might have done. I'm older. Uh, um, but some people I've spoken to in friendship groups at that age, quite an impressionable age, they could have gone one of two ways, actually. They could have gone down the wrong path. They could have made bad decisions and chosen to soothe with alcohol or drugs, certainly at that age. Was that ever around for you? How did you handle it as a 22-year-old?
And there was the options to do it. I was really into my health and fitness, so I was always exercising. But what stopped me, I think it was my mum, because it was just me and my brother and my mum now, and she did everything with my dad, and I felt responsible for her. I had to take care of her. I had to spend time with my mum looking after her. So I could have put my energy into self abuse or put it into somebody else. and we'd go out for a meal every Wednesday night. We'd do family things. I would walk with her every single morning. We'd go down the seafront. We put a bench on the seafront for my dad. And now they got both their names on that plaque, so which is quite cool. So we go down there and we used to do things together. And it was quite funny because my dad died in 2000. I met, because going back a little bit, I said to my dad, when I picked him up, I said, can you bring someone to me? I'm going to get a bit spiritual now, that I can spend the rest of my life with. That was in the September. January, Loz walked in the gym and we started dating. And me and Loz have never had an argument. We've never had a bit of word between us. And she was basically that catalyst that done. And then me, my mum and Loz went traveling Australia in 2021. I think it was 2022. No, 2021, 2001 or 2002. Get muddled up.
Hats off to you and the speed that you work. If Loz walked in the gym and then later you were dating that day, I mean, you didn't hang around.
Take these opportunities when they come. You can't let them go past. Say yes to everything.
I bet you were glad you had your best T-shirt on that day.
I did. My tight T-shirt.
The relationship, I know you, and the relationship you had with your mum was, like you've just alluded to then, gorgeous. I have a relationship similar. It's every son's worst nightmare, I'd imagine, Baz.
Oh, yeah.
What then happens? Some things you don't want to even let into your imagination, do you?
No, it was a tough one. I was sitting in this office. This is my office. I was sitting here working away and she walked in. It was the first week. I think it was the 7th of December, 2019. No, I think it was 2000. It was 4 years ago. So she walked in here and she said, they found a mass. I've got a tumor in my stomach. That was the point I found grief the second time. So this was this was 5 weeks before she passed. So she was diagnosed and then she got 5 weeks and that's when she passed away. 5 weeks. And so it was a different type of grieving, different type of passing for my mum. We had time to talk. We had time to make arrangements. We spoke about the music she wanted at her funeral. We spoke about the type of coffin she wanted. She wanted a wicker coffin with flowers all around it rather than just the wooden box. So we spoke about these things and it gave us time to process it. And it gave me time to understand that she is going to be transitioning back to dad. And that was how I dealt with that. And this was through COVID time. This was like the hospitals were locked down, so we could only have one visitor for 1 hour every day. So me and my brother would take it in turns. He'd go one day, I'd go the next. I had the nice days. My brother had the days when mum wasn't too well. She was either fast asleep or getting a bit ratty with the meds and getting a bit frustrated. But I had the nice days. I don't know why. Must be the favourite boy.
Of course you are. Of course you are. Aren't we all? But when you're working in a finite time like that, and thank you so much for sharing this again. I know this is hard. When you know there's a finite time, I presume you didn't know it was 5 weeks exactly, but that's what it turned out to be. When we talk about the preciousness of time, when nothing else matters, in that moment when you found out about your dad, just for that, the world stopped. Over a period of 4 or 5 weeks, or however long it is between someone's diagnosis and losing the person that's closest to them, where does that focus your attention and energy when every second literally counts?
Do you know what? It makes life so easy. It sounds really weird, but life becomes so easy when you are in this situation because all the drama that we worry about, paying the bills and when's your next client coming from and have I got a job to go to and is my hair right? Have I got a spot? And all these small worries that we have disappear. And the only thing that matters is my mum. That it becomes so simple. And we just spend every moment we could with her, cherishing every moment we could. And sometimes I'll be sat there for an hour and she'll be asleep and I'll be just sitting there looking at her, holding her hand.
Oh,
But those
Very.
moments are so precious, you
Yeah.
know? It makes life simple until you have to go through the passing, and then you have the emotions that come.
I can't imagine.
Mm. It's
You're
it's
saying
tough
it with a smile on your face now, Baron. You're going back to that celebrating, loving.
every day, every
Oh, how did they affect you? How did both grievances affect you as Barry at your core? And
Mm,
again, I apologize if I get any of the terminology wrong. This is coming from a place of curiosity and real
mm,
deep empathy. Was there anything different after your mum's passing because of that was both parents,
yeah.
around mortality, around your aspect now of, life isn't forever.
Mm.
Was there anything different then?
Um, from my dad passing, I had my mum to care for and look after and be around. But when my mum died, it was both of them gone. I did feel alone. I know I've got Loz, and Loz is my rock, and Loz is my
Yeah,
wife, but she was
yeah,
there. But when you bring it down to me, me and my brother are close, but we're not close, if that makes sense. If I needed help, he would be there, and if I needed help, if he needed help, I'd be there. But we don't live in each other's pockets. We don't speak to each other for months and months and months on end. So in that moment, I did feel like I am the only person on in this planet from this family now. So I did feel quite alone. Um, but it made me grow up. It made me appreciate the small things. It made me appreciate life. It made me say yes to a lot more things. Get out your comfort zone, go and experience it. And if you mess up, you mess up. You got to just experience it and just say, yes, I'll have a go at that. Yes, I'll have a go at that. And I know we're going to go on to what I'm doing now for work and stuff a bit later on. And that was like, do I really want to do that kind of thing? But I love doing that now. I love standing up and having conversations with people. But you got to just say yes to everything and experience as much of this world as you possibly can.
you are the first male on the podcast. Why do men find, and I'm completely generalizing because you
Mm.
know it as well as I do in our work a lot do and can, but why do men in general find it hard to talk about these things when we're having a conversation about it? We're two men. No one's lost anything. We're gaining in strength. And I've got full admiration for you. I think you're an amazing person. So if that's the outcome, what do we fear about talking now?
Vulnerability, I believe. I think we are scared to be vulnerable because we think vulnerability is a weakness. And it goes back to when we were working in the coal mines and the real manual jobs that we were doing. It was very a masculine thing. We are the breadwinner. And I think all of those um, ways we see our lives are still inherent within us. We keep quiet. We don't talk about it because if I do talk about it, what's going to happen? Am I going to show my emotions? Am I going to get upset? That makes me look like a weak person. But as I say, I flip everything around. I want people to see me being vulnerable because that is a strength because I'm so secure inside myself that I don't care when I'm vulnerable because that is me being strong. And if that helps somebody else out to show their emotions, let's crack on. Let's all have a cry together because being vulnerable is a massive strength. And that's what we need to show. So I think it's down to being vulnerable. Most men don't like to show vulnerability.
I'm going to not loop forward in terms of the conversation, but I'm going to reference something that we're going to talk about later. Is there Are times changing with how men can be over the generations and by opening up and talking
I,
compared to what it used to be?
I think they're changing in a different way. It's weird to have a conversation face to face, but this generation coming on are really scared to have a conversation with people. They'd rather type it, text it, Snapchat it. And we are losing this ability to have conversations with other human beings. So you might be able to say, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm feeling anxious, which is what I'm hearing a lot. I can't do it because I'm anxious. And we are holding on to these emotions. and we don't really understand what these emotions are. And we're using them as a reason not to do stuff. I get anxious every single day, like bin day. I get anxious about bin day. Is it recycling? Is it cardboard? Is it garden waste? Is it smelly bin? Which bin is it? I don't want to mess up. I got anxious coming on here with you today. I get anxious when I stand up and talk to people. I get anxious when I go into the gym for a workout. But a lot of people now not understanding their emotions, and now these emotions that are coming up are stopping them from doing stuff. Back in the day, we'd put it down, bin it, and we'd just crack on anyway. But now I think we're becoming a little bit, I don't like the word softer, but we're not as resilient to push through these tough times.
Yes, I think there is a generational shift, definitely. The times that we used to grow up in and around either a gym, a pub environment, or something else, out on your bike, on your motorbikes, or fishing with your mates. But we had conversation, and we had face-to-face conversation, and you were only armed with your wit and your banter. That was actually a protective mechanism for a lot of my teens. So you had to be quite sharp.
Yep.
And of course, some of that's being lost now.
Going down the pub was like therapy, wasn't it?
Well, for some, with my friends.
You have a conversation with someone and everyone in the pub would know about the conversation.
Oh, it was amazing. I've got such happy days of being literally locked in from midday until, I don't know, whenever you had to queue up for a disco in your trousers and collared shirt, because that's the only way you'd get trusted to go in.
Disco? I think they called nightclubs, didn't they?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, slight age difference. Barry, moving forward, and in fact, not necessarily moving forward, because I know you had a diagnosis at 30. What part has neurodivergence played in your life, from the various loved ones around you and friends and yourself?
Neurodivergence is a really new word for me because I never knew what it was. I just knew when I was at primary school, I learned differently to most people. I would take in information differently. I'd store information. I'd be interested in different things to other people. But I went through my life covering that up. I would hide it, disguise it, just mask it, whatever I could. It's like if I was trying to spell something, I would write my handwriting so bad so I could roughly work out what I was trying to say, but nobody else could work out what I was writing down, and things like that. And then if somebody would pick on it, I would get frustrated, I would get angry, I'd get violent with them. Those were my coping mechanisms. But going all the way through my life until I got to, I think it's 30 or 35, who knows, it got picked up in the prison service when I was doing my teaching qualification. So I was doing a qualification which was degree level, and I had to write dissertations. I had to write essays, and that is where my brain doesn't really compute. I can't take information in and put it on paper. That's where and other people started to pick up on it, and they started to nitpick and started to, we call it banter in the prison service. But when banter goes too far, it feels like bullying. And I don't know whether I allowed that myself by saying I'm stupid. I'd call myself those names as a protection. If I call myself protection, it's like someone saying, "Oh, I'm fat and ugly." You're not, but if you keep saying it long enough, other people are going to say it to you. And then that started picking up, and I got to a point where I couldn't handle it anymore. So I threw my keys down the chute and I walked out the job. I just walked out the job, and I got home. So it was an hour's drive home, and I cried the whole way home. I've lost my job. That means I've lost my house. That means I've lost my wife. We start catastrophizing the whole situation. And by the time I got home, my wife Loz was on the phone, and I was, oh no. She was on the phone to my boss. And they both didn't know what I've been hiding. Even Loz didn't know what I was hiding for that many years. And I said to them, I had two choices. Do I carry on the lie and disguising it, or do I open up and be honest? And it was 5 seconds of me being brave. And I said, I'm struggling. I can't cope with the work. I can't cope with this. And my boss just said, that's all right, Baz. We see what's going on. We put you through some tests and we see what's going on there. And they put me through a test. I got diagnosed with dyslexia. And I was like, okay. I knew deep down that I was dyslexic, but now I've got a diagnosis that I have dyslexia. But and that really helped me out. And they put some systems and processes in place that I could take longer to do my work. I could come home and do it well. I'm in peace and quiet and good surroundings. And then I got the qualification to become a teacher there. So the little voice inside your head makes these scenarios worse than they actually are. We've all got the voice inside our head. If we just be quiet for 2 seconds, then you can hear that voice come up. When's he going to talk? What's he going to say?
Mm.
It's constantly narrating, and 90% of what it says is meaningless, but it's trying to make sense of what's going on around us and keep
I think
us.
98% of the stuff we worry about doesn't actually happen. I mean,
No.
it's that high. Baz, I got goosebumps when you were talking about that then. Why did I? Because one, the thought of you suffering in silence didn't sit with me, didn't like that. I think, your vulnerability of thinking, what will people think about me? Well, the minute you said to me, I wanted to jump in and help you, I didn't need to, because by the time you got back, Loz was on the phone anyway, and she was jumping in. So, do you think that there's two things I want to ask you? One, how low did it get when you were struggling in silence? And two, what is your another way of describing speaking out that then seems to create room for other people to jump in and help you? It's almost like piercing a bubble. It lets others come in. So how low was it get? And the thought of you suffering in silence, I don't like, but the day you threw your keys, and obviously the time before that no one knew, the safe face that you put on, the brave and everything else that a lot of men do and might relate to now. What was going on under the veneer?
The biggest thing that I feel, and I still feel it today, is frustration. Frustration that everybody else is learning a certain way and they're able to quickly write down notes and go away. An hour later, they've got an essay written or a dissertation written and they hand it in. And I'm still on the first line trying to figure out how to open up this conversation. I hope how to start my bit of work. And everyone else is doing it. And I feel that pressure building and the heat. It's like an internal furnace coming off. And through my school, that's why I used to get into fights, because it was a way of releasing that frustration. And I sat in that classroom feeling that building, and I can't fight another colleague because I'd probably be behind the bars and be on the other side of being a prison officer. And I couldn't do that. So I had to hold that back. And the only way I could release it was walking out the room, throwing my keys in the chute and leaving the environment I was in. And that's the only way I could deal with it.
So suppression almost is self-perpetuation of the problem.
Yes.
It's adhering to whatever bully you've got in your inner narrative telling you to be quiet, and you are being quiet. So you're not getting help, and B, you're being submissive to the bully. And then all of a sudden you talk and the bully goes, oh, I can't believe you've done that. Yeah, but you can't believe you've done that because, mate, cavalry's on the way and you're in trouble now. And it gives you a sense of relief.
And soon as you ask for help, or soon as you open up and talk to somebody, as you say, the bully in your head quiets down. I've got no information. I've got no power to say anything. And that's the win. And it's 5 seconds of being brave. 5 seconds. That's all it took for me to quieten that bully in my head. And it was just like, okay, I'm waiting for what that bully was saying to come true. And it didn't. 99% of people who hear you being vulnerable will put their arm around you and listen.
I've got two neurodivergent grown adult children myself with dyslexia. It's amazing to think what they might have been struggling with over the time. Barry, if we look at neurodivergence, and we look at, let's pretend we've got millions of people watching this, shall we? Let's pretend.
I've got millions of people.
We have, and if we haven't now, we might one day. If any of them are struggling and they're almost frustrating themselves on a day-to-day basis. So they're not even fighting anyone else. They're not even fighting the world. They are literally in a battle with themselves day after day after day. Tell them what works for you and any advice about that 5 seconds of, what did you call it? The 5 seconds of courage, 5 seconds of
5 seconds of bravery. And what I teach to a lot of people now is what I call the reactional gap. So we've got situations every single day. We've got situation coming after situation, and we choose either to react to that situation or respond to the situation. And when we react, all we're doing, we're reenacting old patterns of behavior that have kept us safe and kept us well in the past. But what kept me safe when I was at primary school doesn't work as an adult working man. So we have to change the reaction to a respond. And the way we do that is we take time. The difference is the time we take from the situation to the behavior pattern. That's a time frame. And the longer we can have that time frame, the better our decision will be, because it gives us time to process. It gives us time to think of what the outcome will be. And I thought, right, let's I've tried this reaction all the time, being quiet, covering it up. It doesn't work. It's just got to this point now. So I need to do something different. Let's ask for help. Let's just say something. And you don't have to have the right words to say. You just say, I'm struggling. And that opens up a
Powerful
conversation.
stuff.
Mm,
Really powerful stuff. That could be anyone who's wrestling with telling people about their sexuality, about there's some debt they're in, about anything that's going on in their lives that's they're being told by their inner critic to keep quiet. Now, please tell me, whatever you do in your work, that at some point you have a title of one of your modules which is called 5 seconds of bravery can change your life, because that's what I've written down. That's what I'm hoping that everyone
I'm
will
going to
take
write that
from this.
down.
I'm just hoping that's what, because all of this fear, all of these nightmares, all of the hours that you're in bed sweats, all of the not eating, all of the anxiety, all 5 seconds, 5 seconds of bravery.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of how it's going to make you worse by talking up, talking out, sharing the problem and telling the bully to go away.
Yeah.
5 seconds.
And it is life changing. The reactional gap that I teach, and that is this literally 5 seconds from a response, from a reaction to a response. And when we respond to something, we use in our logical, rational reasoning part of our brain. When we react to something, we are just old patterns that are way, way back in the brain there.
Now, I'm interested in you taking your mind back now. I know we've talked about it a lot, but I'm picturing you in the gym. You've looked up. Wow, who is that? Who is that bombshell?
I've never seen you in my
Loz.
gym. I've never seen you in my gym.
Or imagining Loz has just walked into the room. Take yourself back to that moment. You managed to form a partnership with the love of your life now. We'll talk about things that you've gone through over the years. Inevitably, lots of people do. But wow, I mean, found your penguin? Is that right? Do they
Oh,
stay together
oh,
forever?
I think so. Yeah. Whatever it is, he's like my rock. I don't think I would be where I am today without Loz. She is the catalyst for everything we do in work, in our personal life, everything. She's the catalyst for everything, and I just say yes to everything. So
You've got a smile on your face, so it's working.
yeah. But she walked into the gym, and I asked her out, and she said no. That's how it started.
Oh, Ruth. And
Yeah,
then
I
you
was like,
thought,
how
right,
dare
game
you?
on.
But then she went away. She thought about it, and she come back in the next day, and she said, "Is the offer still open for going out for a drink?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go." And we have never looked back since that day. It's just been a roller coaster of a ride. We've been through lots of ups and lots of downs. We've traveled the world together, but we've been through some tough times as well.
And talk to me about the time that you've had together then. I know there have been some challenges around, again, neurodiversity, mental health, various other bits. I'm asking this from a point of, I know that you're happy to share.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have just suggested that. But I'm also thinking that other people might be going through the same things, and to hear people talking about it might allow them to get their 5 seconds of bravery.
One of the stories that I've got of Loz, I should have known back then that she had mental health. I never know what to call it. Mental health conditions, mental health disorders, mental health. She had mental health problems, because we got together it was the April when we started properly dating. And about 2 or 3 weeks after us dating, we booked a trip to Australia. So it was me, my mum, and Loz.
You
And my
didn't know
mum
you're
was
around.
like, "You've only known her for like a month." I said, "No, no, no, she's cool. She's good." So we booked the trip to Australia. We got on a plane. We flew 19, 20 hours to Australia. We landed in Darwin. And any sensible person, we'd land there, we'd get our hotel room. No. Loz goes into the first shop she buys, the first shop she sees, buys the biggest didgeridoo she can have and a telescope. We're backpacking around Australia. So she had the telescope in one hand and a didgeridoo in the other hand. And I'm like,
I'm marrying
Loz,
that.
you've never been traveling before, have you?
You were like, I am marrying that.
Yeah. And my mum looked at me. I looked at mum. I was like, don't,
Amazing.
don't say it. But she was happy as loud. She carried these things around for 7 weeks. 7 weeks she carried a didgeridoo and a telescope. Yeah. So that
Oh
was my
dear.
first looking back. I was like, yeah, yeah. But moving forward, we started dating and we bought a house together and we moved in and all that. And things started not feeling quite right. And we thought it was us. So we ended up going to relate counseling and we spent like months relate counseling and what have you. And I was like, this ain't working us. We're still having the same conversations. We're still going through the same problems. And then she was at work. I know she won't mind me saying this, but she was at work and she broke down at work because she was a police officer. And her sergeant said, you need to go to the doctors. You need to go and speak to your doctor because something's not right here. And that is when the doctor said you got depression. And 4 years, I believe it was 4 years after that, after seeing consultants after consultants, after psychiatrists, psychotherapists, they gave her the diagnosis of comorbid OCD and bipolar.
We're working in a world now, and like you said, you were quite sure how to say mental problem. I think you and I would just agree that as long as someone's talking in a safe language, that the being completely correct, like let's invite the conversation, let's invite the curiosity, let's get terminology right and wrong as long as it comes from a good place. Now, tell me what those two things mean. Tell the audience what those two things actually mean.
So start with the worst one. We always think bipolar is going to be worse than OCD, but for Loz, the OCD was the debilitating one because she had these rituals. Like we go to bed in the eve on the nighttime, and by 9 o'clock, I wasn't allowed to go into the loo because she had this cleaning ritual she had to do because her OCD was all about vomiting. She didn't want to be sick, and she'd do so many things to stop that happening. And then the tapping would start, and then she had to do these ditties every night, and dowsing crystals come out, and anything she could do to protect herself from that voice inside her head again. She'd done loads of things to protect herself. That was the most debilitating thing that she had. But the bipolar was, I'd come home from the prison service. I never knew whether I had a big credit card bill to pay off. She'd come home and she'd buy a Mac computer or an iMac or whatever. And then a week later, she'd be self-harming. So I never knew what I was coming home to. So we had to look at managing these situations. And she spent, I think it was 20 weeks at an institute where she was learning about bipolar. And she knows more about bipolar now than most of the general practitioners, the doctor GPs do. So she could wrap them around her little finger and tell them exactly what she wanted to hear them to say. Here, sorry.
Yes. I will point out that Loz has given us full permission to talk about this. And Loz has said because it would be interesting from the point of view of someone who cares and loves for So you said post-morbid OCD. What does that bit mean?
Comorbid. Comorbid just means really
Comorbid.
bad.
And bipolar?
Yeah, bipolar it used to be called manic depression. So you have a highs and you have lows in your moods. So Loz likes it as an elevator. So you got the penthouse and you got the basement. Most people will bounce between level 4 and level 7. So they go up and down. We have moods that go up and down, but Loz would hit the ceiling of the penthouse and then she'd be down in the basements. Basements is where she started self-harming and like suicidal thoughts and tendencies, and the penthouse would be where she went and spent every penny she could.
I'm delighted to say that hopefully over the coming days, I'm going to be having a conversation with Lars. For now, I'm having a conversation with you in that position as caring
Mhm.
with someone you absolutely adore, clearly. That aside, how much empathy, resilience, self-talk, like we're just talking about Baz now. We're
Mm.
talking about Baz being Baz. What did you need to, what were your natural reactions? Did you ever think this is overwhelming? This is too much? If we were being honest with ourselves, how do I, how did you empathize? How were you resilient? How are you still, together as a lovely couple? And what you've done is you've actually merged your lives as opposed to
It was a
conflicting.
big learning curve because I was, if you want to put a label on me, I was like a man's man. And it was like, come on, Loz, just pull yourself together. Just get over it. Just don't feel like that. Just feel like this. And being a man, I was trying to fix her. And because that's what men like to do. We like to
Mhm.
fix things. Give us a hammer, we'll fix it or we'll break it down. And that's what I was trying to do for many, many years. And I started to understand that I can't, she's not broken in the first place. Her brain is just wired in a different way. And that was my opening to thinking that I can't mend something that's not broken. So it's about managing
Yes.
these conditions, understanding triggers, understanding how she would respond to things. So we come up with this big board in the kitchen. We called it a dilly gaff board because I'll let your listeners work out what dilly gaff stands for. But we had a list of the triggers, we had a list of all the symptoms, and we had a list of all the behaviors. So when I saw Loz was behaving in a certain way, I'd go like, no, 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 no. Oh, that's that. And this is what we need to do. Da, 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 that's it. That's what we need to do. And that's how we dealt with her bipolar and her OCD. But the biggest thing I learned was I got two ears and I've got one mouth, and we need to use them in that ratio. I could just sit there and listen. I don't need to fix her. I don't need to have information put to her. I just need to sit and listen, not just, yeah, 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 you're all right, Lars, and keep watching the sport. Yeah, 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 yeah. I turned everything off and said, right, let's half an hour, let's talk to me, Lars. What's going on? And that could solve the problem for that day. And then we've just grown and evolved and evolved and evolved. And it's all about communication at the end of the day.
It is, and I think also when it comes down to what you were learning, it's about education as well. Having that border literally with a cross reference of, because if you don't know, and this is why a lot of people shy away from these conversations or go, oh, I don't know about mental health or neurodiversity is a new
Mm.
thing, or whatever, it's because they're just not willing to open up perhaps and listen. You you educated yourself. Like I think a lot of people are going to take from this, you don't need to fix, you need to understand. And what I mean by that is don't try and essentially get lost into your world where everything is different. That would be the same as your prison officer saying, just get on with it, Barry, just write that report. What he did and Loz did at the time was come into your world and see it through your eyes. And what you've tried to do is go into Loz's world and go, wow, I didn't realize it all looked like this. So that's
It's
how you
crazy.
interpret it when I say that. If
Yeah.
I do go into the bathroom after 9 o'clock, you think that.
Yeah.
So you educated. And when it comes down to neurodiversity, do you think education is the key?
Education, understanding. It's okay knowing something, but understanding it and implementing how they see the world, because it is, they see the world in a different way. And if you go into Lozzy's world, and she does see it in a different way. With my dyslexia, I see it in a different way. And it's about literally, as you say, going into their world and seeing it from their point of view. And if you go into their world and see it, wear their shoes for a day kind of thing, you see the world in a different way, and you get the same outcome at the end, but you have to go a different route to get the outcome that you want. Like for me, it's a straight line. I'm here and I want that. I go straight for it. Loz is a different kettle of fish. She has to go around a different route, but we end up at the same destination. And it's just understanding that some things take longer time than others. And don't get frustrated. Don't get peed off. Just be patient with that person.
But you must have got frustrated and peeved because
Oh,
they're natural reactions. So where
I'm
did
still
your
getting frustrated.
self-talk? What did you do to vent those?
It's go back to that reactional gap again.
So
Give myself time. It's that 5 seconds. Give yourself time. Everything comes back to this reactional gap. So everything I do in my life, I always put it through this reactional gap. How do I want the outcome to be? If I just go reaction, pull yourself together, Loz, do this. I know what the outcome's going to be. We'll have an argument. Loz won't feel any good. I feel annoyed because I've upset her and we don't get the outcome. Sit back. What do I want this outcome to be? What do I need to do to help Loz through this situation? And then it goes back to time. Time is our biggest ally.
people think they can't change, they can't educate themselves, etc. Well, they can, because when you were on the playground at 15 and you hadn't had your diagnosis, and then you sorted stuff out in your own way, Baz, by the
Yep.
sound of it, you have learned, you have taught yourself, you have educated on how to be, and actually that's made your life better, because like you say, if you were still having scraps at the back of a fish and chip shop at however old you are, things would have turned out differently, wouldn't they?
Neuroplasticity. Have you heard that word?
Hmm.
It's the brain's ability to remold and reshape and relearn. And it's science has caught up now. We have the ability to retrain the way we process information. And it just takes time and we've got to want to do it. It's like anything. If we find something interesting, we're going to learn as much as we can about it. But for us to say, yeah, I want to learn to change my behaviors, it takes a little bit more effort because the way we reactions don't take any effort at all because they're so well ingrained. To see the world in a different point of view, in a different world, it takes effort and it takes time, it takes practice. We have to keep doing it and keep doing it, messing up a bit and doing it again. But at one point you'll get there. You'll get there and things will change.
Great advice to the listeners and viewers. And before we wrap up, we've spoken about a lot on this podcast. We've spoken about your childhood, your parents, we've gone through grief, we've spoken about lovely Loz and your amazing relationship and how you've accommodated each other. And everyone has a right to reply, Baz. Loz will be coming on. We'll
I should have gone second,
don't
shouldn't I?
get too comfortable. You mentioned something about when you said I'm a man's man, and I know that term because we're of the same kind of generation. You're younger than me. Now, when we talk about the work you're doing now and a man's man, or let me just put you on the spot now. What is a man nowadays?
A man is, I believe it's the same as it always has been. It's somebody that respects and treats other people with dignity. It's all about respect. And because I talk a lot about it to the young lads in the schools,
Yeah.
and we tend to think that a man is the strongest person, the loudest person, the most aggressive person. But when I see that, I saw it a lot in the prison service. The loudest, the most aggressive wasn't the manliest man. They was the one with the little voice inside of them in fear. And it was that voice inside of them telling them they're scared, but the only way to get over and not allow people to see this, the fear inside of them, was to be loud, was to be aggressive, was to be the fighter, the more aggressive person. But a real man is the one that's willing to show their emotions, willing to open up and respect other people's life, respect other people the way they see the world. That's what it takes to be a real man.
Think I'd like
Uh,
a session on this on this one subject alone, because we've obviously had the Louis Theroux documentary about the manosphere. You're working with young people who are looking for role models. Now, I find that series or the Netflix interesting because if we take away the bad role modeling, etc., what I take from that is that young people are looking for a role model. They are looking for something to grab onto, and that's prevalent. That's promising them all the shiny stuff, and this is how you get the cars and the money and everything else. So I'm not dismissing what I am dismissing that type, but what I am saying is if young people are looking and young men are looking for role models, where is the alternative today? I grew up with Daley Thompson. I grew up with and a lot of people won't know him. He's an Olympic athlete. He was amazing. I grew up with Frank Bruno. I grew up with lots of these, and they were sporting role models. Now, what are those positive role models still out there, or do we fundamentally need to make a concentrated effort to give positive role models to young men nowadays?
I think there are, well, I know there are positive role models out there, but the problem is we are so stuck to our phones with social media, and the algorithm picks up what we're looking at. So what we need to do is change the algorithm for what we're looking at. Start searching for like the Linford Christies, like the John
Inford,
Reedises, like
yes.
the um, Daley
John
Thompsons,
Barnes,
John Barnes.
like
Yeah,
Ian Rush, yeah,
they're amazing athletes, and there are so many amazing athletes out there. And Middleton is a great advocate for positive mental attitude. He's a really, really good person to have as a role model. There are so many out there, but we need to get off our phones and change
yeah,
what the algorithm is feeding us. Because as soon as we hold on to an image for more than like 2 seconds, the algorithm picks it up and it starts showing more. I looked at, we're going to Montana next month, and I looked at bear spray. And now all I'm getting is people getting attacked by bears on my phone. And it was literally one thing I looked at. So if we see the manosphere, we see Louis Theroux videos, we see H.E. Tiki Toki Man.
HS Tiki Toki, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it
And
was.
I see that man as very, he's he's a very timid man inside, and he's portraying this image, one, to make him look like what he thinks is a
Yeah,
man, but also to get people in his world so they can buy his products. And that's what it is. He still has his mum next to him in most of them videos.
yeah.
And so there's two sides to this guy out there. And I don't think if you see him in real life, he's not the same person as he's portraying online. And that's the scary thing about what we're seeing with social media and AI technology. Our brain is not designed to deal with this amount of information coming at us this quickly. So we can't process it. And this is why I believe we're all getting diagnosed with something, because our brain is being overstimulated.
You know, the doctor told me the same thing. A GP friend said, Simon, 80% of the people I see every day, it's to do with mental health. Our brains just literally weren't made to take in this much information. Baz, we are going to have a part two. I love your company. I love your honesty. Before we wrap up today, we've covered an awful lot. What would you like to say to your audience today? How would you like to finish off?
I finish everything off with saying we've got one life, live it, make it count. Make an impact in this world today.
You're priceless. From myself, the Inspired audience, and everyone who's watching, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having us.